Our universe was formed around 15 billion years ago, following a gigantic explosion known as the Big Bang. Space dilates, and billions of galaxies occupy the cosmos. Each galaxy contains billions of stars. Black holes form. In one of the great spirals of our galaxy, the Milky Way, are the Sun and the Earth, born together some 5 billion years ago. This film tells the story of the origins of life and its evolution. We look at living beings that evoke Earth's earliest life forms, most of which have ceased to exist. The Sun, with its enormous corona, was the atomic battery driving our universe, while the Earth was but a huge furnace. The first rocks began to crystallize. Slowly, the Earth cooled. Earth was merely a desert. No trace of life, neither animal nor vegetal. There were no clear blue skies. The atmosphere differed from today's in that there was no oxygen. Water didn't yet exist on the Earth's surface. It was spewed up in gaseous form by volcanic eruptions and was contained in the atmosphere. first rain began to fall, a new phenomenon. It fell in boiling downpours for millions of years. Because of its mass and its ideal position relative to the sun, the Earth's atmosphere was kept from escaping into the cosmos. Water remained on the surface in three forms: liquid, solid, and gaseous. The oceans formed. Nearly 4 billion years ago, life began in the water. There are several hypotheses to explain this genesis. Life may have appeared in the dark, boiling, sulfurous springs which were heated by the planet's magma. It may also have appeared in small pools filled with organic mixture containing space dust. Another hypothesis has it that minerals acted as the scaffolding around which living matter was built. Life can be defined as a group of molecules enclosed within a membrane which draws its energy from the exterior. This group is capable of reproducing itself either identically or sometimes by modifying and diversifying. All species of cells probably come from a common ancestor. This is the last universal common ancestor, alias Luca. The first living beings were bacteria. They obtained their needed energy from a chemical reaction known as chemosynthesis. Here are some primitive unicellular creatures, cyanobacteria, that used the sun's luminous energy and produced oxygen. This was the first photosynthesis, also effected by chlorophyll in plants. At this time, oxygen was still a rare gas, dangerous to living things. The oxygen expelled modified the composition and properties of the atmosphere. About 1,400,000,000 years ago, the cell developed a nucleus, allowing it to protect its genes with a membrane. 700 million years had already lapsed since the first microscopic unicellular organisms appeared. Life would remain like this for another 3 billion years. A single drop of water was a whole world. The elementary behaviors of life, locomotion and nutrition, made their first appearance. The food chain began. A balance was established between animal life and plant life, with the former often feeding on the latter. Reproduction was essentially accomplished by cell division, the apparently very simple principle of one cell splitting to become two. This was asexual reproduction, life on the assembly line, very fertile, but with little innovation. Certain unicellular creatures began to join together. The size and complexity of living beings continued to increase. The sponge, long considered a plant, was among the first animals to live in a colony. Life had carried on at the purely unicellular stage for more than 3 billion years. But for the last 670 million of these, invertebrate multicellular marine animals began to proliferate successfully. Minuscule animals, together with microalgae, formed enormous coral reefs. They were mainly built by colonies of polyps, tiny tubular animals topped with tentacles that ensnare microscopic plankton. These minuscule, strangely shaped invertebrates were the biggest source of food for the coral reef. "600 million years ago, specialized organs began to appear in multicellular animals. The sea urchin's ambulacra were to enable movement, while its spines were reserved for defense. The mouth and the teeth are set on an axe. This axiosymmetry can also be found in starfish, brittle stars, and feather stars. The spiral tube worm deploys its branchiae. The oxygen expelled by the algae filled the atmosphere. The colors of the sky were more or less the same as they are today. While life was still absent on dry land, it was abundant beneath the sea. $1,300,000,000 years ago witnessed an event with far-reaching consequences. Sexual reproduction first appeared in unicellular life forms. Starfish undertook countless fertilizations without ever coming into contact. Sea urchins, males and females, released their seed in the water simultaneously. White clouds of sperm suffused the water, fertilizing clouds of ovules. What may seem wasteful was merely a manner of overcoming the countless dangers which lay in wait for the future larvae. A sperm became able to merge with an ovule, forming a fertilized egg, which inherited half of its genes from one parent and half from the other. With fertilization, life discovered diversity, each organism becoming unique. Evolution accelerated due to the innumerable possible genetic combinations. By dividing itself, the egg could develop into a larva, which later grew into an adult animal. These larvae, mixed with the plankton, contributed to the dissemination of the species. The larvae of sea urchins, the larvae of scallops, the larvae of starfish. They are all swept off by the currents to metamorphose and grow to adulthood further afield. In order to increase the chances for successful fertilization, some species had to physically meet in order to reproduce. Sea slugs formed a chain to mate with each other, each individual being both male and female at the same time. Sexual reproduction was a total success. 600 million years ago, life exploded with an incredible variety and number of species. It was the triumph of diversity. One of the great successes of evolution were the copepoda. They were so great in number they surpassed all other animal groups on the planet. These tiny crustaceans had a vital role in the food chain. Copepods made up a large part of plankton, floating at the will of the currents. Many plankton life forms were translucent and gelatinous. Others were large, like the Venus girdle. At a depth of 9,000 feet, life also blossomed in the extreme conditions around hot springs. Minerals contained in the water enabled the development of shells and bony plates. The shell of the horseshoe crab has protected it for millions of centuries. Mollusks, such as the nautilus, have existed for almost 500 million years without hardly changing. A huge advance in evolution was the eye. The first photosensitive cells were transformed to produce a real image. The cuttlefish already possessed an evolved eye. Capturing prey became no longer a question of chance. The eye allowed a sure and steady aim. The more efficient the eye became, the greater the necessity of remaining invisible. The octopus learned to camouflage itself by imitating its surroundings. This 6-foot-long sea cucumber adapted the color of the seabed. While another species of sea cucumber protected itself by spitting out a sticky substance. Weapons became more sophisticated. Stingers, darts, and venom-tipped tentacles, like on this ferocious sea anemone. The evolution timeline was far from regular. There were several massive disappearances of life, mainly due to changes of climate. 80% of species living some 530 million years ago have since become extinct. Numerous fossils of this fauna have been found in Burgess, Canada. Luckily, Pikaia, the ancestor of all vertebrates, is among the 20% which survived. The lancelet, which looks like Pikaia, is considered to be the evolutionary stage preceding fish. Despite its plant-like appearance, the ascidian was an animal, a close relative of the vertebrates. In plankton live numerous animals, such as the salpa and the appendicularia, both ancestors of the vertebrates. "420 million years ago, the first shellless animals appeared. They had solid flesh and an internal skeleton. First came cartilaginous fish like the ray and the shark. Then fish with bones. All these surprisingly shaped animals are an illustration of the richness of evolution. The seahorse, the crocodile fish, The lungfish was one of the first fish to crawl from the sea, able to breathe the air which finally contained enough oxygen. Having been preceded by plants and insects, it was now the turn of the vertebrates to conquer the great continents. Life appeared on Earth 4 billion years ago. It has only existed on dry land for the last 400 million.